193 states assembly election seats to be won, indeed. And this is where you get all the information you're looking for. Earlier, we've been connecting to some of our correspondents from across the country who are feeding us in, who were actually feeding us in on the preparedness of INEC and the electorate for tomorrow's big deal. Yes, it is a big deal because there's so much at stake, and we'll be looking at all the issues involved. INEC has given assurances consistently of its readiness and preparedness for tomorrow's state governorship and assembly election. We have a guest, two guests actually in the studio, so let me quickly introduce them. I'll start with the lady. Let's say ladies first, Mr. Ekpele. Lucy James Abagi, Director of Programs Connected Development. Thank you so much, Lucy. Always nice to have you join us.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for having me again.
Okay, and we have Mr. Jake Ekpele, founder, CEO, TAF Africa. That's the Albino Foundation Africa, formerly the Albino Foundation, and also an election observer. Thank you so much, Mr. Ekpele. Always nice to have you join us.
Thank you, Ruth.
And there's so much to talk about, right? Following what played out from the presidential election and, you know, National Assembly elections, there's so much we're looking at. Well, let me start with you, Lucy, as an observer. You have put in so much work from, we were just having a conversation, chit-chat before we came on air, and you were telling us of the number of observers connected development has sent out 20,000.
Yes.
And INEC approved only 7,000.
Yeah.
So you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, so, you know, code using Uzabe, I've been observing the elections, and we're able to mobilize 20,000 young people, including women and girls, to go to the field across the polling units that we have in Nigeria. So our strategy was basically to manage the system. We had to use, you know, observers that had registered at specific polling units to give us feedback on what is on ground. And that was how we were able to gather the intels we had from the presidential elections. And we trained and built the capacity to deliver and report using our Uzabe platform. So if you go down on Uzabe, you could get live feeds of what is happening on ground and what happened during the presidential elections. So our team are actually ready on ground to see what is happening across the state. And one thing we are looking out for is the quality of the elections, not basically the result. When I mean the quality, what time did INEC officials arrive at the polling units? Were, you know, election materials there on time? Were the INEC officials there on time? Did they use the beavers for accreditation? And were results transmitted, you know, using, you know, the IRIV and all whatnot? So that's the aspect we are looking at mainly. So when you go to Uzabe, you will see issues around time of arrival for INEC officials. You will see issues around fake news. You also see issues around were the materials efficient, you know, to the numbers of people that, you know, registered to vote at that polling unit. And what time did elections start? What time did they end? What time the counting end and all whatnot? So those are the details that we are trying to record using Uzabe, because we are building this based on the Electoral Act and trying to ensure that this act works for the people, actually, and then ensure that the power returns back to the people using that platform.
Mr. Ekpele, I'm sure you have so much you want to share with us. Based on your observation in the past 2 weeks, nobody saw the postponement of the governorship and state houses of assembly elections, you know, to happen. But it did happen. And from what Lucy just said, based on the whole glitches, you know, that were there, a court seat in a federal high court sitting in Abuja just today, you know, gave an order to INEC that, you know, results should be transmitted electronically and also should be uploaded to the IREV, you know, for viewing of the result and all of that. What's your take, you know, based on the fallout from the presidential election and what you want to see play out tomorrow?
Well, that's what INEC is set up by law to do. This concept of, tabulation, there's nothing like that. Let's be very straight and speak to the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act says transmission of result. Nothing short of that. And that's what INEC is expected to do. And that's what I believe that they will do. I hope that they will do. It's a good development for the country, for the continent, and for the world. This is the best time for INEC to redeem herself and do exactly what the Electoral Act said. And hopefully that will be what they will do. We are deploying 346 observers across the 28 states. Our deployment is a bit more scientific because we use a lot of data to drive our observation, including our app, which anybody can watch, can download. Going to Google Play Store or iOS, it's called TAF Election Observers. If you download that, maybe by next election cycle, we should raise a minimum of between 100 to 500,000 observers because
impressive.
Yes, because we do have an eyewitness component of the app that allows you to send us reports real time, video, text, real time, and then of course whatever interface within the app goes straight to our dashboard, which is tafelectionhub.com.ng, and you'll be able to interact with us real time. We can get your report on, especially on accessibility of persons with disability. You know, we're very focused on what we're doing. We're specifically for disability inclusion. We want to monitor the inclusion of persons with disability. But that doesn't limit us to just disability. Election is a general theme, and we can function in any area and get information in any area, you know. So we are using this opportunity to call on the community of persons with disability to please go out tomorrow and participate in this election. And by the way, we have 34 persons with disability who are contesting the election. Some of them didn't win the past Houses of Representative and the Senate, but there are many of them contesting.
Level?
Yes, at the state level. Please vote for those persons with disability.
You're not supposed to be campaigning for
No. I didn't say vote for any political party. Yes, I will definitely say vote for persons with disability. We need them in the houses of assembly, and we want to make sure that they have that sense of belonging and participate in the process. We want to change the country. We want to be involved in nation building, and the more you give us the opportunity, the better for the society. You know, in inclusion, I always say that once one person is left behind, others cannot move forward.
You know, Mr. Ekpele, inclusivity is everybody's business. So
Exactly.
whether we like it or not, we have a stake, you know, to
Exactly.
that. But Lucy, coming back to you, from the fallout of the Presidential and National Assembly election, the expectations, you know, for tomorrow's election is very high. A lot of things are expected to be different, positively, so to say. Based on what court development have gathered from your assessment, where do you want to see, you know, being streamlined?
All right, thank you so much, Ruth. Now, this is really very important for like my senior colleague mentioned now, for INEC to redeem its general profile for the audience, to also build confidence for citizens to have more confidence in the system. And so we had a lot of glitches, a lot of challenges recorded across all the states. And, you know, they came up coming in the same pattern. Late arrivals of material, late arrivals of INEC officials. We had lesser cases of security issues, but the main issue was time of arrival for voting to happen across polling units. And if INEC has taken 2 weeks, 14 days, I'm sure that 14 days is enough. and of course, they fix a date, and of course, INEC still has time to say we are cancelling this election if they want to.
We hope that doesn't happen.
If they want to. If they know that they're not prepared, the law still allows for them to cancel and postpone the elections further. But one thing that Nigerians will want to see is a different elections, and not in just the conduct, but how results are transmitted. Remember that before the presidential elections, civil society organizations and the media, had to consistently ask the chairman how are results going to be transmitted, and the INEC chairman said they are going to be transmitted using IREF, and that was not seen in the last elections. And so this coming elections for tomorrow is also important, and let me tell you why the elections is important. Development starts from the grassroots, from the communities. It is the governor and the state assembly that makes laws and then pass it at the state levels before he's even coming to the federal level. And so everything that will affect citizens' access to basic amenities has to come from the state level, has to come from the local government, has also to come from the state assemblies. And this is why these elections for me is more important, because I'm a grassroots person. I've gone to many grassroots communities, and then you will see that rural people are being marginalized. Real marginalization, real-time marginalization, that you will see that equality is far-fetched when it comes to rural development.
And just to cut into what you're saying, actually, just got to me. If we're talking the state governorship elections and state houses of assembly election, grassroots involvement is very important.
Very important.
But would you say, from your observation, they have been carried along effectively?
You mean grassroots communities?
Yes.
Yes, of course. They've not been carried along effectively. Now, there are different processes that comes when it comes to readiness for elections. And I believe that elections don't just happen few days to the election. Elections happen after you've been elected. The people should begin to hold you accountable. But we are hoping that this will be different, because what we've seen in the past is that after you've been elected, our leaders just abandon us and then go across and do what they think is good for the people. But for me now, I'm thinking that if you want to see real sustainable development, it should start from the grassroots. People's involvement, citizens and communities' involvement in actually pinpointing their areas of priority and needs is important. So beyond you saying that you're going to budget this, you're going to do that in the budget, what do the community members need? And that is what I want community and citizens to take note of when we are going to cast our votes by tomorrow at the state levels. So if our leaders, there are training issues now. If you go to Lagos, if you go to Akwa Ibom, the happy hour section is going on now. And also citizens are taking charge, and I like the way they're taking charge. But let's go back to grassroots need assessment way of development. So if the community members are going to take actions, if we want to change, we want people from the rural communities, we want women, we want girls, we want young people to come out and elect and look at what every candidate is bringing to the table. Does it translate to actual development, or they're just mere promises and commitment that are not tangible, are not measurable, and cannot bring forth sustainable development and keep us at that level of being the giant of Africa?
Mr. Epele, I know you want to respond to what she said, but let me just give you a guide.
I really wanted to talk about the grassroots.
Yes, it's relation to that. It's beyond, at this point, I wouldn't say it's too late to say, a lot is at stake, go out there and vote for the candidate of your choice. Of course, even if it's 10 minutes to you get into the polling units before that time, you can still make up your mind. So in terms of the grassroots mobilization, carrying the communities along, of course, we have persons with disabilities there also who were being sidelined. I know TAF Africa released a statement earlier today. So you want to marry all of that and respond to that?
If you give me the opportunity, I want to talk about grassroots, because I'm very passionate about grassroots. I'm a Christian, and the Bible says, if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Yeah. And truly and really, I think the struggle that we have at the national level of democratic practice can also be traceable to the fact that we have not taken care of the foundation. And the foundation is the local government, the local government election. And that's why in my mentorship of persons with disability, I'm pushing them towards local government elections and getting involved in local government elective offices, you know, because it's where there is less competition. You know, and
you build your experiences.
Yeah, you don't need a rocket science to know that where there is less traffic, you are likely to succeed there than the subnational and the national, where everybody is competing to be in the State House of Assembly, wants to be governor, wants to be in the House of Representatives and the Senate and so on and so forth. I think the framers of democracy had framed it in such a way that it's always bottom-top approach and not top-bottom. So let me tell you what we're doing. I'm very passionate. Yes, I like getting involved at the national and the subnational, you know, but my real core passion is in the grassroots. Is because once we fix the local government elections and get it right, it will trickle up
to the state level,
and the national. And so what we've been doing quietly is recognize, as long as we have the funding, recognize states that we can go into the ASIEC, which is the State Independent Electoral Commission, and look at their guideline, look at their policy, look at their strategy, see how we can restructure them to become a formidable electoral body. A lot is being invested at INEC, the national level. We are neglecting the state level. We've gone to states like Sokoto.
The local government level,
Yes, exactly, the local government level. We've gone to states like Sokoto. We're working with the government of Sokoto to restructure their electoral guideline and bring it up to standard and up to speed with what is obtainable internationally. You know, we're doing that with Cross River State government. We're doing that with, we did a few works with Gombe and Plateau State. I'm much more interested in getting it right at the foundational level so that they will become the pillar that will carry the national, the subnational, which is the state, and the national. So it's important that if we must get our electoral body, electoral practices right, we must go back to the local government and get it right. And I'm also an advocate of a law that will take away the local government election laws and powers on the state governors. Because if we do that, then they will not be able to dictate who becomes the local government chairman and how the body will run. I am not also an advocate of giving INEC everything to run local government. It's too much. As a matter of fact, I'm beginning to advocate that INEC is too big an institution. It needs to be unbundled. It needs to be INEC needs a proper structure, you know, that also takes away powers that recs have. If this past election, what raked this election are the recs. They are responsible for most of the issues that we had in this past election. And that's why INEC was bold, and I congratulate them.
That's a direct indictment.
No, but it's true.
Okay.
INEC was bold to come out and suspend 2 of them. We started alerting the nation about certain recs that were given that position who were partisan. And today, most of the states that they administer had problems. Most of the states, you know. So we need to begin to look at the institution, you know. Are there something we can do to make it better?
I think that's...
There is no doubt, I'm bold enough to say this on air, that there are people within INEC system that sabotage the efforts of Professor Mahmood.
Okay, we don't want to delve into that. Okay, but in line with what you're saying, talking about giving local government councils, direct power and all of that. At the state level, we're already seeing that it's going to happen because President Buhari, earlier we got reports that he signed 16 constitution alteration bills and 3 others into law, now which allows one on the financial independence of the state houses of assembly and state judiciary. Now that's a step in the right direction.
They're fantastic legacies that I will always remember President Buhari when he leaves on May 29. And one of them is the signing of the Electoral Act, the signing of Disability Prohibition Act,
and now we're
the
seeing this happen.
establishment of the National Commission for Persons with Disability. There are a lot of things that needs to be done better, but these ones I will always remember him for. And I want to say that I think he's one of the most compassionate presidents that we have had. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of government. I'm not speaking for them. I will never go to them for anything, I don't. But however, I like to speak truth, and that is it. I will always remember him for this. And there are also some of the things that I'm asking him to fix before he leaves. And one of them is fix the electoral system, and you can do it within months.
He's already doing that from what we're seeing happening. Lucy, I'm sure you want to respond to what...
Yeah, I want to.
Yes,
really,
Mr.
I want to be on the other
said.
side.
Go ahead. Because
I want to play devil's
head.
advocate.
Yes.
Now, we don't have issues with policies. And for as much as I can remember, there are a lot of policies that have been passed in this country that have lacked the root of implementation. Now, INEC, from the Electoral Act, it's been assigned duty to transmit result from the polling unit using IRE. Did that happen? No. Did anyone provide a statement as to why at that time this wasn't done? So if we have an electoral act that was recently passed by the president, and I've not seen implementation in real time. This is the timeline is like not up to 6 months before the elections. And if this has not happened, honestly, as a CSO, as an activist, I don't really care about much of these policies as much as I care about implementation of these policies. Now, my senior colleague was talking about regs. How are regs appointed? How are they appointed? How are they assigned duty? Who holds them accountable when they don't deliver on their jobs? Beyond even firing them, they should be sent to jail because whatever they have done, the actions they've taken has done what? Has brought our democratic process, which of course most countries are looking up to, as at today, to duplicate in their own countries. We have colleagues that came from Cameroon and came from other African countries, and they were on our knees, like, code, connected development, please, we are looking up to Nigeria to show us the path. But as it stands now, I think to a greater percentage, we failed them. And that's because even our INEC chairman went to Kenya and observed the Kenyan elections and then said they actually recommended that Kenya should use the same transmission system we have in Nigeria using IRE, but we didn't use it in the last elections. So what is our guarantee that the Electoral Act would be followed duly, notwithstanding other policies? So policies have never been the problem of Nigeria. Nigeria have one of the best policies. If you do research across other African countries, developed countries, we have good policies on ground. But the problem is accountability. The problem is implementation. The problem is what happens if these policies are not followed.
Lucy, I have been in policy
formulation.
Not policy conferences, and I had to take the other side, the flip side of what my sister is saying. Oftentimes we say the problem is implementation. There are too many policies. You cannot implement where there are no policies. There has to be policies before implementation. The problem is not necessarily sometimes implementation. The problem is that the formulators of the policy put it on what I call shelf 11, shelf 14. You do policy. Policies don't have legs. Policies don't have the energy to work on its own. When you do a policy, you have to be there to follow the implementation. And that's how you get it implemented. I'll give you an instance. We did the albinism policy. It was the first policy in the whole world on albinism. We didn't keep it on the shelf. We started making effort. And today, development partners are implementing some aspect of that policy. We did the inclusive education policy. You know, today, a development partner is implementing that policy. Why? Because we didn't do the policy and go to bed. We did the policy and began to push, advocate for implementation.
That's where the policy makers, fall in line, because you create a policy, it falls back to you. Just like the Persons with Disability Act that was signed.
So if
there is an agency, a commission that followed that, and that's why we can see inclusivity in Nigeria, glaring, so to say.
Exactly.
There is active participation because there's a push.
Code was established as an organization, mostly like a policy. If yourself and Hamza and all the guys that are pushing through are not pushing it, it would have died. So the problem is, in fact, I want more policies, and the thing about policy making, people who make policy, oftentimes, you may not even be there to implement it. But it will be implemented if someone is willing to follow through. There's a difference between sometimes a policy maker and a policy implementer.
And that's the sustainability plan you're talking about.
Exactly. I mean, I'm in a few years, I'm going to leave TAF Africa, all right, because of our sustainability plan, and leave it in the hand of, in the past 1 year, I have never employed anybody that is more than 35 years, because I'm building the next generation organization, and I don't believe that because I'm the founder and I'm the CEO today, I'm going to be there. I don't want to hand over at my funeral. I will be alive to hand over to the next generation and exit and watch them do what I'm doing better.
Mr. Ekpele, we must commend you. You're doing a great job, pushing for inclusivity. But let's get back to the policy we're questioning, the Electoral Act, so to say, based on tomorrow's elections. It's not only INEC that has a role to play. Political parties, the candidates, the electorate have a role to play. And they have been urged, to refrain from acts that could mar the process or compromise the electoral process. Lucy, how would you react to that?
Of course, I'm sure that one key thing that will stand out for citizens, most importantly, I want to speak for citizens beyond political parties, because I want to be non-partisan here. And if I'm speaking for the citizens, and one thing I must commend young people after the presidential elections was that there were no riots, apart from, the open rally we had from the PDP. We actually expecting, because there were a lot of grievances, people weren't happy. We're expecting mass riots and campaigns, from young people. But young people have been very intelligent, I must tell you, and have adopted different strategies.
Anywhere in the world, Nigerians will always stand out.
Yes, and have adopted better strategies in, addressing the issues on ground, using different advocacy methodologies to pinpoint where the errors were and providing evidence. Now, this comes to point out that Nigerians are getting more informed. Young people are getting more informed and also know how to direct their grievances. Beyond going, because if the Electoral Act doesn't allow, because the INEC chairman has already announced the president-elect, there is nobody that can change that, even the president cannot. The only party that can change that is the court. So every other grievances should be addressed via the court. And of course, every aggrieved candidate has, if need be, have gotten to the courts to air their grievances. And then young people have taken one key strategy that has worked for us during the NSAS campaign, to go on Twitter and talk about their issues, to tag the lawmakers, to tag policymakers, to tag the presidency, and to also provide evidence that, of course, needs to be validated. But what I'm pointing out here is, I'm excited as a young person because power is gradually coming back to us. And of course, I want to use this medium and say that beyond being depressed, beyond being mentally drained, that your votes, if you feel your votes didn't count, doesn't mean you shouldn't go out tomorrow to vote. Because your vote will actually count.
Yes.
That's the truth. Your vote will actually count. And it will count in the fact that you will be able to hold them accountable beyond even your preferred candidate being elected tomorrow. You have come to realize that your voice counts, and then you can begin to make demands and place demands. Because the key thing is, do we have young people sitting on the table to make decisions? Do we have people with disabilities also on the table to make decisions, to be part of the decision-making processes of everyday life or everyday decision that will affect them as the people of this country? And one other key point that stood out for me is the fact that Nigerians are looking for the servanthood leadership. The servanthood leadership. We want people that will go there and represent us. We want people that will go there and make policies that will affect us positively. We want people that will go there and not gag our voices. We want people that will go there and ensure that the future of our children, notwithstanding our social status, is being protected. We want people that will go there and ensure that every child, including the girl child, can go to school. We want people that will go there and ensure that societal norms, traditions, and cultures will not bar our girl child from going to school, because everyone's voice will count. So Nigerians, we have a duty on our hands tomorrow. Why? Because power has to come back to the people. We need to elect people that will lead us from the state level. Because if you get a good governor that will represent your constituency, that will represent your state at the national level, then you've solved the major problem. If you get good state assembly members, parliamentarians, legislators that will make laws that will affect every one of us positively and bring about sustainable development, then we are on the right channel. So I would say everyone should go out tomorrow and vote. And then let's wait for our aggrieved parties, of course, to, air their grievances in the right channel using the courts.
Yeah, I wanted to say, let's not hope to see too many aggrieved parties, but in an election, there must be winners and there must be losers. Mr. Epele, I mentioned the Tough Africa statement that was released today, in line with what Lucy has just said. We notice, in terms of data of persons with disabilities who participated in the presidential elections, compared to what you want to see play out tomorrow, what's the whole narrative?
I think the inclusion component of this election, like some other aspect of the election, had issues. It didn't meet our expectations, maybe because of several factors, including the logistical challenges that INEC had, the surge in most of the polling units, and of course when you see a large and huge crowd, persons with disability will always run away from being trampled upon. Also when you see issues like the concerns about the glitches in transmission of results, all of that have generated a lot of voter apathy that we don't want to see tomorrow. And so I think it is also important to use this medium. NTA has always been the voice for the voiceless, to say to persons with disability to please go out there. Not only persons with disability, everyone, whether you are young, as long as you're eligible and you have your PVC, please don't be deterred. Okay. Don't be dismayed. Go out there and exercise your franchise.
Mr. Ekpele, I'll have to hold your thoughts there, because we want to connect to a guest in Ogun State, Frank Mba, Commissioner of Police there in Ogun State. He's joining this conversation. Oh, he's your friend. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, CP.
Thank you and good evening to not just you, but to our teaming viewers.
I want you to tell us, based on what the security operative from your end has put in place, rather, to ensure that tomorrow's polls, will be secured.
For us in Ogun State, we have done all we need to do to make sure, to ensure that the gubernatorial and House of Assembly elections tomorrow come out peacefully. We earlier on conducted our security threat assessment, and following those threat assessment, we were able to customize our security deployment to suit the local security needs of Ogun State. We've been able to identify the hotspots. We've been able to identify those places that you call the hotbeds politically. And we have done our deployment in such a manner that we believe very strongly that we'll be able to mitigate most of those threats that we identify in the course of our analysis. And so we are very confident that tomorrow elections will come and go peacefully, just like the first election we do. We're cautiously optimistic that with the kind of collaboration we also have with the Nigerian Army here in Ogun State, other security agencies like the Civil Defense, the Immigration, Customs, the Correction Services, the Road Safety Corps, NDLE, and the rest of them, we believe very strongly that working together we'll be able to deliver an environment that will be devoid of all kind of violence and intimidation to voters.
Oh, okay, CP. When it comes to security, everybody raises high level of concern. And it's good you mentioned that the hotspot has been, all the hotspots there in Ogun State have been identified, and there's so much that has been put in place in terms of security to ensure everything goes well tomorrow from your end. But do you have numbers to tell us? Do you have, when I say numbers, like how many police officers have been deployed, to certain key areas, and also how much assurances are you going to give to electorate in Ogun State that it will be really, really safe for them to come out and, perform their civic responsibility?
First of all, let me start with the kind of assurances that will be given to the citizens of Ogun State. The presidential and National Assembly elections that were conducted a few weeks ago, we proved that we have the capacity to actually provide a safe and enabling environment for the conduct of a credible election. And what we intend to do come tomorrow is to replicate some of those strategies that we deployed during the presidential elections. As a matter of fact, we are taking time to conduct a post-mortem of some of those strategies we deployed during the presidential elections, and we've redefined them, and we are coming up with even improved version of those strategies during tomorrow elections. So we are telling Ogun State people, we are telling the people of the Gateway State that just the same way we were able to police the electoral space, police the state during the presidential election, we would do the same tomorrow, and we will even do them better. In the next 4 hours or thereabout, we will begin to enforce the restriction of movement in the state. And so I'm equally using this opportunity to advise citizens and residents of Ogun State to remember that there will be restriction of movement. And in Ogun State, we will work with the Nigerian military and other law enforcement agencies to ensure that citizens respect and that order. We believe very strongly that if all of us are able to respect the restriction of movement order, it will go a long way in stopping the illicit flow of weapons. It will also help us to checkmate the activities of hoodlums, political thugs, and other kinds of criminals. And then for the numbers, we'll be deploying in total a combined threat of over 15,000 personnel, drawing from both the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Army, the Department of State Security, the Correction Services, the NDLE, and every other sister security agencies. And we believe that with the gadgets we've also received and some of the operational equipment we've received from the Inspector General of Police, we will be able to deliver on our mandate.
All right. Thank you very much, Frank Umba, Commissioner of Police of Ogun State. We wish you the best, and we want to hear good news come out of Ogun State. All that will start well tomorrow, hopefully will end well. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure to serve, and it's my pleasure being here.
All right, talking to the Commissioner of Police, Ogun State, there, Frank Umba. But before we pick up with our conversation here in the studio, we have to cross over to Jos, where my colleague Zenred is already standing by. Zenred, I'm sure you have lots of information you want to tell us from your end. So please go ahead. And it's good to see you on the other side. And it's good to see you.
Good to see you from here too, Ruth. And of course, we have a lot of information, just like we heard earlier, the REC saying about all the preparations done by INEC to ensure that not that the election is just successful, but better than the presidential election. So before we go into our discussion with the NOA director here in Plateau State, we have a report, and the report says ahead of the governorship and state house assembly elections, more than 10,000 security personnel have been deployed to strategic areas in Plateau State to maintain orderliness during the polls. Commissioner of Police in charge of Plateau State election, Mamman Dauda, gave this indication while briefing newsmen in Jos on his level of preparedness for the exercise. Ruth Stephen Hoke reports.
The Commissioner of Police says the briefing has become necessary in view of the need to ensure that lives and property of citizens are protected. Already, more than 10,000 security personnel drawn from the police, military, NSCDC, NDLEA, Nigerian Correctional Center, Federal Fire Service, Nigerian Immigration and Federal Road Safety Corps have been deployed to strategic areas to maintain law and order.
I want at this junction to all our police personnel and other security agencies in the state against being partisan in the election process. You are to be strictly neutral and apolitical in the discharge of your duty.
He added that to further enhance the operational capability of the personnel, the Inspector General of Police has provided the command with the personal protective gadgets and anti-riot equipment.
We have already directed the Department of Operations to immediately distribute this first batch of anti-riot equipment to the divisions and other tactical squads for effective use during tomorrow's election.
Mamman Dauda asked all key players to caution their followers not to indulge in activities capable of disrupting peace and security, adding that anyone caught will face the wrath of the law. The commissioner adds that there will be restriction of vehicular movement during the period. In Jos, Ruth Stephen Hockey, NTA News.
And Plateau State's Director, National Orientation Agency, Kaneng Pamhoro, is here with us. Good evening and welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Okay, from that report and of course your tour of the state,
Yes.
what would you say or how would you rate the level of preparedness for the governorship and state assembly elections here on the plateau?
Thank you for this question. So far so good. I want to say a thumbs up for all of us, the ISS members in Plateau State, as we prepare towards these gubernatorial and state House of Assembly elections on the Plateau. Well, during the last election, that was the presidential and National Assembly elections. Of course, you know the problems we all had in the state and everywhere in the country. But for now, I'm telling you that preparations are in top gear. We have done a lot of things that are different from the other time, like going ahead to distribute and sort out the sensitive and non-sensitive materials by INEC at the central bank. We did it earlier than usual, you know, and also the local government, that is the executive electoral officers, are able to also distribute these materials to various rack centers and others early enough. You know, by yesterday, Thursday, they had already done that. By noon, a lot of them had finished, or no, not finished, no, but had gone halfway. And by evening, I was told by my officers that they had done it and most of them had finished. By today, they had moved. They had moved to various rack centers, and the rack centers will accommodate the youth corpers, who are mostly POs, presiding officers, 1, 2, and 3, and then we have the security men there too, the supervisor, or who is the head of the rack center, and you know, things like that. So for us, we are a little earlier in the preparations. And on the side of the National Orientation Agency, we did not just sit to watch what is happening. We took the bull by the horns, that after the presidential elections, we were mobilized to go back into the field, to start all over again, sensitization and creation of awareness to the voters concerning these forthcoming elections. So we were able to go around the whole state because we have officers in the 17 local government areas. So we were able to go around the whole state. We have done that, and I want to say that without missing what to, you know, that people have felt our presence. People have felt our presence because we are also on various media houses, you know,
so
doing that.
having gone round
Yes.
and done all that,
Yes.
how would you describe the pulse of the people?
Yes, of course we have those that are complaining, therefore want to exercise apathy. But we've talked to them. We've visited a lot of different groups, women groups, youth groups, everywhere, stakeholders everywhere. And we've talked to them will I use the word convince, okay? Try to convince them to come out, because exercising apathy will not help anybody. If you withdraw yourself from participating in the elections, obviously it means that you don't have a voice. You don't have a voice, it means that you don't have the power. You don't have the power to question anybody that is in power, whatever he does or does not do. You cannot question that person. So if you exercise your power by participating in the elections, obviously you have the right to ask anybody any questions. And you see, so people are willing to come out. Yes, we have those that are complaining, but honestly, the majority of the people are willing and anxious to come out and participate in tomorrow's elections.
Okay, so what are those things that we hope to see being done differently in these elections as compared to 3 weeks ago?
Well, I am not a rec, but as a mobilizer...
As a domestic observer.
Oh yes. And as a mobilizer,
yes.
I know that we have done the area of sharing out of materials early. So I hope that, and I pray that and we are going to see a difference in tomorrow's start of elections. People are anxious, people are aware, people want to see INEC doing the right thing. All of us are stakeholders, not just INEC. So they will want to see INEC start these elections early. And just as I said earlier, materials have been distributed. So I want to believe, of course, we'll start early. Well, first of all, today, I was at the NNPC filling station where all of us stakeholders were given coupons to go and fuel. So a lot of the vehicles that will be used for tomorrow's exercise went there to fuel. There were not, I counted the vehicles, there were not less than 30 or more that went there to fuel today. So with this, I want to believe the fuel, they got it early or earlier than usual. So they are going to participate, they are going to do things, earlier too. The police herself, you quoted the police commissioner. The police commissioner had a press briefing yesterday, and afterwards there was a show of force by the police and other security agencies in the state. They have gone to show, to reassure Nigerians, okay? Everything is going to be all right by the grace of God, not by our own power, not at all, but by the grace of God. Everything is going to be all right. What we may do differently is that the security agents, they are not going there to humiliate or harass people. They are going to be present at every polling unit. We observed that earlier there were some polling units that did not have security personnel, but now the Commissioner of Police reassured us during that meeting that every nook and cranny, every polling unit, everywhere is going to be manned by a security agent. So I believe that they are going to man the place better, going to do it well. We will not have skirmishes, like we had in some places before, and I believe that everything will work for good.
So what will be your final word to the electorates here on the plateau?
Yes, the show of force by the police is not to intimidate anyone. It's just to reassure us that they are there to protect us, God's willing. So I am assuring Nigerians that they should come out and cast their votes under very conducive atmosphere, very peaceful, just like we had the elections the other time on the 25th of February. It was relatively peaceful. Relatively peaceful. We didn't have any, I would say, much problems on the plateau. So for me, I am still assuring Nigerians, please come out and cast your votes. It begins at 8:30, and please be rest assured to come out before 2:30. In case you are doing anything in the house, come out early enough to be on the queue before 2:30. Once it's 2:30, we've told Nigerians, the security man will be standing behind the last person on the queue. So please don't come and fight with security agents, don't come and fight with presiding officers, don't come and make any show at the polling unit that you came earlier and things like that. Those were things we experienced the other time. So I'm assuring Nigerians, please come out. We will do our best.
Thank you so much, Tabitha Kanaim-Pamholo, for coming to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We'll head back to Abuja now, where Ruth is standing by with more discussions on Verdict 2023. Ruth?
Thank you very much, Zenred. Quite a brief conversation, but very engaging there you had with your guest. Thank you for that update. Of course, we'll definitely, put our eyes across the country and Jos in particular also to see what will happen tomorrow. Thank you, Zenred. Okay, well, crossing over to another key state, talking about Edo State. We know governorship election will not be happening there, but of course the State House of Assembly election will be taking place there tomorrow. So let's cross over to Benin to find out what's the update there. I can see my colleague, Ogochukwuka. Ogochukwuka, I'm sure you have some key informations you want to share with us, so please go ahead.
Yes, please. It's once again going to be a battle, not in a negative form, but politicians are going to be displaying their prowess and strength through the electorates and their votes. All right, you are on to the Nigeria Decide Studios, also known as the Verdict 2023 studios here in Benin, Edo State. I am Ogochukwu Ona, and sitting in is our regular guest, Dr. Kuzua Osawaru. Thank you once again. He's a public affairs analyst. But before we begin the discussions, let's take a look at some of the special reports we are having today, especially as we are not going to be having, like you rightly said there, Ruth, we're not going to be having a governorship election. We are just going to be having the state assembly elections. And of course, it's a known fact that there has been crisis in the state assembly, where we just have a few members of the House members just being there for 4 years, leaving 14 out who were not inaugurated. All right, let's take the first report we have for you. Edo State is among the 7 states in the Federation where the governorship election is off cycle, that is off season, and as a result will not be involved in tomorrow's election. That's the governorship election. Let's join Goodluck Enaini, who is taking us through Edo history, and he's also going to be explaining what is responsible for its political, that is the unique political status that we're having now.
Edo State occupies a landmass of 17,802 square kilometers, covering 18 local government areas. It has a population of more than 4 million people who are recognized for their acute political sensitivity. The state, however, finds itself among states that do not have their governorship election off cycle. This is a consequence of the ruling of the Election Petition Tribunal under Justice Peter Mwadi on the 14th of April 2007, which declared the former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshomole, of the Action Congress, the true winner of the gubernatorial election, with 166,577 votes.
The constitutional provision with respect to the tenure of office of every governorship, every governor, which must run for 4 years, setting from the date of swearing in. So when Osumba was ousted out of office, and Oshomole now was sworn into office as governor, his tenure commenced from November 12th. And since then, of course, elections for Edo have been staggered.
However, the assembly election, which is its only body, is a crucial issue and will determine the quality and character of democracy in the state.
This legislative election, as far as Edo State is concerned, is very, very important to politicians and even more important to Edo indigenes. And why is it so? This is because we need good laws to be made for there to be a proper execution by the executive and a proper interpretation by the judiciary.
The state legislators, they make the laws that directly affect us.
Citizens of the state have been urged, therefore, not to see the contest as a do-or-die affair and play the games according to the rules. In Benin, Goodluck Enaini, NT News.
Yes, not to see the contest as a do-or-die affair. This is also applying to Ekiti states, where there is also an off-season election. All right, what do you have to say about that, preparation-wise?
Well, I think preparation-wise, yeah, your background reports have said nearly everything there is to be said. We are off the national timetable for governorship elections, and our House of Assembly elections are also very important to us because of what you might call a kind of dislocation in our own legislative activities and so on. And maybe this is time to correct it. And Edo has always been a pace setter for the country. Everybody acknowledges that. We are generally very progressive here and we are sophisticated. I believe tomorrow people will also go and select their lawmakers according to their own conscience and so on.
Okay, when you say pace setter and for 4 years, is that also setting a pace?
Well, the legislature, the floor of a legislature really can actually be a place for contestation. if you look at parliaments all over the world, even mature democracies, occasionally people descend into fisticuffs and parliament is closed and so on. So it's just a patch of our own history. I believe this time around we would have our full complement of lawmakers in our assembly.
Okay, so in essence, that shouldn't be a model.
No, it shouldn't be a model. It's regrettable. It's regrettable. It can be explained, but it cannot be justified, really. Because if you practice democracy with the concept and practice of separation of powers, the different organs ought to be respected. The different organs ought to be intact. The different organs ought to have their integrity protected, because that is the only way you say you practicing full-blown democracy. As a matter of fact, some people believe that if the received arm of government is suppressed for whatever reason, you are actually turning to a dictatorship, because that is the only symbol. Because even in our own history, whenever the military was in power, the executive arm of government was in place. The judiciary has always been there, though you have ouster decrees and so on and so forth. And it's only the legislative assembly that is often being limbo. Though we are talking about a sub-national entity here, not the country at large, on and on. But even if it's the local government council, you need the legislative council to be functioning very well, talking about our state. But we do hope we rise above whatever glitches kept out in this state for the past 4 years.
Yes, I've been very optimistic there and positive.
But we have to be, yes. Democracy provides for that.
Yes.
This cycle has come.
Yes, and 207 candidates vying in the Edo State House of Assembly in 15 political parties. The people are very aware now that they have to take the bulls by the horn.
Yeah, we wait for the outcome tomorrow or the day after. Whatever emblem of the party you belong to, whatever the manifesto, once you have been chosen as a lawmaker, you know you have a two-sided role to play. You are going to be the ambassador of your own immediate constituency to the assembly, and the reverse direction, to be the ambassador of the National Assembly to your own constituency, because you are also there to join in the overall governance of the state by making good laws that will guide how the affairs of the state will be directed, and so on and so forth. So we do hope the voters will actually go out tomorrow and make their choices, and we'll have a House of Assembly that is constituted and poised to perform their role.
All right, let's go back to the campaigns in the last couple of hours. You know, counter blames and counter blames, name calling, hate speech, and all that. Why should we get to that level?
Well, maybe the stage of our development, I sincerely believe that we'll keep this democracy on the road. As we evolve, most of these things will be suppressed. But even now, there are laws that can actually check defamation, slander, and libel. It's up to individuals to activate those. So if I'm slandered, for instance, simply because I'm a contestant, I have the option to take the person who slandered me to court, maybe make some claims on him. But if during this period we grant a kind of immunity to people to say whatever they like, it's probably part of our culture. Or maybe what is similar to what also happens, we're talking about the House of Assembly just now, because you are protected usually. Of course, you are supposed to behave with some decorum on the floor of the Legislative Assembly. You're supposed to observe a kind of etiquette. That notwithstanding, people are also protected whenever they are on the floor. So maybe we have, by practice, adopted a electionary period as a time you can say whatever you like and get away with it. But the laws are there, they can be invoked at any time.
Okay, talking about invocation of laws and implementation of laws, during the 25th Presidential and National Assembly elections, we saw obviously people getting themselves involved in violence, destruction of ballot boxes and papers and all that. But up till now, some persons are still worried that there are no indications of anybody who has been prosecuted or somebody who is cooling off in police cell for that.
Whether during elections, before or after, breaking the law should never be rewarded or condoned. And during elections, in order for us to retain our faith in the process, that the electoral process is not interfered with, is not under some undue influence, maybe the law enforcement agencies need to be more alert during that period.
And the judiciary?
And the judiciary, of course, is kind of awesome. It's a kind of awesome. It's a totality. Law enforcement is not limited to the police force, judiciary. It's a piece with different segments attached together to achieve the result. So what we need is law and order at all times.
And the citizens themselves too, going above board to, do whatever they feel they can do because nobody is watching them. Okay, so what are your expectations tomorrow? You are going to be voting early?
Yes.
Right. So what are you expecting?
I expect the elections tomorrow will be conducted in an atmosphere free of violence, free of intimidation, and people will go out to express what their conscience will have told them. And at the end of the day, we will have a very vibrant, well-composed House of Assembly to make laws for the good governance of Edo State.
Good. Do you have anything to say about INEC and the court? Do you have any?
Yeah, INEC, like any other institution, is not perfect. Still has teething problems. And I believe all citizens who wish INEC well, because INEC is a centerpiece of our electoral process. They manage the process. They are so empowered by law. And they may run into hurdles in process of doing that. And maybe we need to be a bit tolerant. For those who believe they have lost elections on account of some deficiencies that can be attributed to INEC, yes, the laws can be intimate. We'll probably just ask them, even as they contest their claims in the course of law, that they probably will see it as a patriotic investment in our democratic evolution.
Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Kunzo Osaru. It's been a delight having you share your thoughts with us. All right, Ruth, do you have any question for the doctor?
No, Ogochukwuka, I don't have a question for your guest. I'm sure he has dealt with every issue you've raised there. Well, thank you very much. Of course, Edo State is on the spotlight because of the issues around the State House of Assembly. Thank you, Ogochukwuka. All right, let's cross over to another zone, this time around Ibadan. We connect to my colleague there, looking very pretty in yellow. So tell us what's the information you want to share with us very quickly. Go ahead.
Thank you for joining us in Ibadan, the Verdict 2023 studio. I want to tell you that it is prepared for tomorrow's governorship and State House of Assembly election. We have a guest with us, and he's one who is qualified to tell us how prepared Oyo State is. My guest tonight is the resident electoral commissioner here in Oyo State, Dr. Ramon Teller. It's good to have you join us again in the studios tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, let's just go straight to the point. How prepared is Oyo State for tomorrow's election?
I'm glad to bring to your notes and giving the knowledge to Nigerians, particularly the Oyo people, that the level of our preparedness in Oyo State has reached advanced stage. And this could be seen in the level of our delimitation status, the voter registrar, where the commission came up in a recent time, especially about the expansion of the voter access to polling units, when Oyo State was initially having 4,783 polling units. Additional 1,616 were created. That makes Oyo State to have 6,020 polling units as of today. That's the level of preparation. The second aspect I would like to give concession to is the continual voter registration, where Oyo State was having a figure around 2.9. But as I speak to you, we have well over 3.273 million as of today. With that, the election security plan, it is a two-way of a thing. The commission on our own part, the Electoral Institute, has even organized the electoral security training to further enhance the effectiveness of the security personnel. They now come up with an idea by consolidating and the game, where the electoral security training were even broken into 3 phases.
Now let's look at it. Taking your experience from the presidential and the National Assembly elections, what do you think it will do to improve the results of the impressive out and how good was here in your state?
The major aspect that I would like to say about the security operatives to be deployed massively to put be confident of the electorate. So
okay, we seem to be having signal challenge there from Ibadan. My colleague Funke having a conversation, just to find out the preparedness of the electorate and INEC there in Ibadan to ensure that tomorrow's polls in Ibadan is free and credible. Okay, I'm told they're back on. Can we connect to them again?
Yes, we're back again and we're talking about what to do to improve on the presidential and National Assembly elections in tomorrow's.
That's why I was referring to deployment of the security operatives on time, so that to allay the fear of the electorate. Because the absence of the security operatives on time on the polling unit at times could generate a tension that easily translates to an uneasy atmosphere.
I know that some of the complaints we had then was that your people were not there on time. Some places, elections did not start until about 9, 10, or thereabout.
That could not be true.
There was somewhere a particular polling unit that said they started at 9:30.
It might be as a result of the security personnel that I was even referring to. Because we had some certain percentage given to our transport service provider and they mobilized on time, especially the men and materials.
Okay, just hold your breath there. We're still coming back to security officials. And as part of the proactive measures for the conduct of a peaceful governorship and State House of Assembly elections on Saturday, food vendors and other traders would not be allowed to operate around polling units. Grace Ayonleke reports that this formed part of measures highlighted at a security meeting ahead of the elections.
Being a second since the presidential and National Assembly elections some weeks back, the meeting of heads of security agencies in Oyo State, held behind closed doors, was an avenue to map out strategies that would cater for strengthening security architecture in the state. This is to prevent any action capable of fueling the embers of violence during the elections.
Also included in the new security schedule is the involvement of cyber forensic experts to handle cyber-related offenses, especially circulation of fake and unverified news.
Thereafter, another security meeting with the Assistant Inspector General of Police, Zone 11, Sikiru Akonde, was held with various police formations in the state to ensure conducive and secure atmosphere across the 6,393 polling units in the state. The meeting, among other things, deliberated on the security arrangements put in place for the forthcoming governorship and State House of Assembly elections and other security concerns in Ibadan. Grace Ayonleke, NTA News.
Yes, we cannot talk enough about security. How prepared are they for tomorrow in Oyo State?
It is a two-way of a thing, like I said earlier on. The security agencies are critical stakeholders in the electoral process, and their effectiveness has been greatly influenced by our commission, where the Electoral Institute now came up with an idea, which is in a 3-phase, cascading the electoral security training, specifically for the security operatives, for them to be practically mitigate against security lapses that may likely to result from the electoral violence. Apart from that, we have been having constant meeting with the ICES, where the commissioner of INEC happens to be the chairman and the CP happens to be the co-chairman. Part of what we were able to analyze thoroughly is looking about the background and history of some local governments that were prone to violence in Oyo State.
Okay.
Having said that, they now came up with an idea, strategize to ensure that all the criminalities and threats are nipped right in the bud. Not only that, a few days ago, the Commissioner of Police now convened a meeting where all the political parties and candidates, religious leaders, community leaders were made to sign a peace accord. Then they now went to the extent of having these interstate boundaries, sealing up the interstate boundary where Oyo State is being shared border with other states, such that they will be able to prevent the influx of criminal gangs that normally unleash violence during the election day. Then one thing that really discover from the security agency is this kind of robust and collaboration they are making, assures teamwork that could even guarantee safety for the people and populace of the Oyo State.
Okay, thank you very much. So, what is your word to the populace tomorrow?
Well, you see, the electoral process is a living one that we must all engage in. The election procedure should not be left in the hands of the election administrator. Rather, we have to continue to seek and identify some challenges that we think is even being the electoral process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramantela. We have to go back to Abuja. And Ruth, we thank you for coming to Ibadan. Tomorrow you're going to hear much more about what is happening here in this climb. Thank you for joining us, and it's back to Ruth in Abuja.
Thank you very much, Funke, for that update there. Indeed, you know, all eyes are on the states, 28 states, so we'll definitely connect with you tomorrow, God willing. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, welcome back to Abuja, but I'm afraid we're rounding off this conversation very soon. So back to my guest here, very briefly. I know TAF Africa has high expectation of INEC in terms of operational practicability of the provisions of the Electoral Act for persons with disabilities. So in summary, what do you want to see tomorrow?
Well, I think time will not permit me. I would have just gone through the statement we just released a while ago. But what do we expect from INEC? Number one, deploy assistive materials that will help in inclusive election process by ensuring the participation of persons with disability. Number two, ensure that your staff and ad hoc staff understand the simple processes like priority voting for persons with disability. Ensure that they would bring the ballot boxes to where persons with disability will have access to them. Ensure that you show up on time, because for persons with disability, we want to go first and then go home, so that we don't get involved in any act of violence and all that, which I'm using this opportunity to say, please let there be peace. You know, let's have a robust electoral experience, and at the end of the day, let the candidate that the people have chosen be the one that will win the election. Election is not a do or die.
Indeed.
You know, and we must continue to nurse this beautiful democracy so that we would become the nation that is truly democratic.
We have to get to Lucy, Mr. Ekpele. So let's hear your final thoughts.
All right, thank you so much, Ruth. My final
very
thoughts.
Briefly,
yeah,
please.
very brief. Three final thoughts.
Okay.
INEC, please deploy materials on time, because I know the citizens are ready to vote. Number two, please let all votes be counted and transmitted at the polling unit after elections. And number three, please let elections be collected and public announced from the IRIF. And I want to also charge Nigerians that you have the right, constitutional right, to hold your elected officials accountable, and it starts from the elections. So see you tomorrow.
All right. Thank you very much, Lucy James Abagi, Director of Programs, Connected Development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Yeah. And Mr. Jake Ekpele, Founder, CEO, TAF Africa, and an election observer. Thank you for your contributions always, and your support you give NTA. Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful Ruth. And thank you for my good friend Wada Ibrahim, your producer.
Yeah. Yes.
Who is very committed to inclusive development.
He's not the only producer. It's a whole lot of crew behind the cameras. But we want to say thank you for being with the Verdict 23 studio. It's not over until it's done. We'll be back at 10, where my colleague Benny Adams will pick up the baton where I left off. But for now, we're going to prepare for the 9 o'clock network news. So you stay tuned to Africa's largest TV network. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.